mind, man. You got me going way back here.
You don't worry, my man. Don't worry. Folks, welcome to a special edition of the Jake Feinberg Show. And my guest today is another unsung hero in the evolution of music. He was rooted in gospel music from his upbringing, which eventually led to collaborations with Monk Higgins and Otis Clay, and several big soul hits in the early 1960s. After serving his country in the Army, he wound up in Chicago as a leading session musician for the Chess record label, playing on albums with Dorothy Ashby, Jack McDuff, and Phil Upchurch, among others. He continued his prolific work in the early 70s with his own album as a leader, Omega Man, as well as forming a special relationship with the great bluesman Willie Dixon. So much to talk about, and it's so good to talk to Cash McCall. Welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Good morning.
So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about when you were younger. How did the church include black youth positively and help them become more confident in themselves?
First of all, when you're in the middle of a cotton field, you learn things about people as a young person. They didn't play with you. They would teach you things about living life day to day. That came from much of the older people, and the preachers and the gospel and the older ladies. You didn't act out of order in church, and they told you. My greatest influence was my mother and father, who were singers themselves. They used to sing the old hallelujah gospel style. And when you don't have a television, and you're sitting around a stove in the evening, my mother and father would always sing. And they'd sing some of the older gospel that you don't hear nothing of anymore. But that was my first influences, and guess what? It was really good, because it was fun for us as children watching your mother and dad sing. And my mother was beautiful. She had that very high voice. My father was a bass singer, but he could sing some tenor and baritone too. And that's how we got into it. My brothers and sisters, all of us, we learned to sing harmony on gospel music.
Right. And
I'm an old man, I'm wondering, but that was the start of it. Then cotton fields, after that, singing in quartets, me and my brother. What was it? Gospel harmonizers or something. I can't hardly remember the name. But I still remember the guys that we sang with. That was really good, because my brother and I was very young, and those older guys had a lot of patience with us. And hey, they just let us do it. And hey, my brother was a baritone singer. He could sing tenor, and I sang tenor most of the time. But it was fun, even in the middle of those cotton fields. Rehearsal was on Tuesday night. They'd come by and get my brother and me, and we would rehearse, and that was the most fun that I ever had in my life as a young person. And learning to hear some of those great voices of those guys who are not here anymore. But that was a lot of fun, and that inspires you to get into music. Never knowing that you're going to be a professional when you're that young, but it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Can you talk a little bit about Old Madrid, Missouri, and what that was like? I don't even know where that...
Madrid.
Yeah.
New Madrid, Missouri.
New Madrid. Yeah, not old. New.
Well, let me tell you something. Cotton fields, churches with candlelight, all of that stuff. We sang in a place called Poplar Bluff. We lived between Catron and Lilburn, Missouri, I think. In fact, my mother and father, when we were leaving Chicago, I was about 5 or 6 years old, they showed me the house where I was born in. But New Madrid and Lilburn, Missouri, we as a quartet, we sung in all of those places. Sunday evenings after church, they'd have the quartet program, and that's when I saw some of the best singers I had ever seen in my life. Can't even remember the name of the ladies group, but what a great voices they had. And mention one in Chicago, the Golden Harps. I remembered. What a great group. Group of ladies, they sing, and what voices they had. But it was a lot of fun. That's where I got the basic knowledge of music, was in New Madrid, Missouri. In the churches, singing in the churches and stuff, that was great. Listening to the preachers and all that. Can't imagine. I wish I could go back to my young life. That was a lot of fun.
Well, I mean, it clearly, it was like you were like a shot out of a cannon, because it gave you, you had so many role models to look up to, and you had your own God-given abilities, and you put that together, and really, from an early age, your career took off real quick.
Yeah, they tell me it did. When you come from a cotton field, you don't really know what's going on all that much. You just know you're in a situation. And when God blesses you to be in a situation where you can meet people like Phil Upchurch, Morris Jennings, Sonny Long Gone Thompson, Charles Stephanie, Gene Barge, who I just talked to a couple of days ago, that makes life wonderful.
I will tell you right now.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Listen, Phil Upchurch. I've long admired him for his playing, but we had such a beautiful interview, and he was talking about Morris Jennings, and he was talking about Charles Stepney, and eventually, we've kept in contact, and they're a big fan of my show, and sure enough, he's bringing me into this whole new group of brethren that I was never familiar with, like Cash McCall, and it's just so beautiful to be able to expand out, because you guys, from the cotton fields and from that sort of total lifestyle, which was totally stripped down, where you guys are just singing harmony around the kitchen table. I mean, there's a reason why, when you wake up and those tunes are so happy, because you guys must have seen the progress that you made. It was so incredible.
It was a lot of fun. Most exciting was Phil Upchurch and Morris Jennings. Phil, when he was a young guy, he was skinny as all get out,
yeah,
but he was a fun guy in the studio. And he didn't, sometimes you couldn't talk to him, I remember, but I used to sit and watch him play. Admired him. I was doing a lot of gospel sessions and a lot of the blues, and when he had just come out of the Army, he came up there, and man, he played bass in such a different way.
What was it like?
Bass.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, what was different about it?
Man, it's like he lived with the guitar, man. It's the way he played it, and he was all fun. He'd come in, man, and they would call him in to do a session because they wanted Upchurch. They wanted that flavor he would put there.
Uh-huh.
And he always put something exciting and different there. That song, More and More, he's playing bass on that with Little Milton when we recorded that song. And, man, he played it different. I was on guitar, but I just looked at him. I remember that day we were in the recording studio. I looked at him and said, man, you're amazing. He said, get out of my face. Donny Hathaway was there, too. Not on that session. He was on a session song I wrote called Let Me Down Easy for Little Milton. And Donny Hathaway was on the keys, and Phil was on bass. I can't remember, but I remember those fun days. Donny Hathaway was a great musician also. Morris Jennings, Phil Upchurch, and Donny Hathaway. Couldn't get no better than that.
Absolutely.
They had guys like Murray Watson was on trumpet. The old guy used to have a pillow he put in the chair because when he hit a B or a C, woo, he went through pain, but he did it. And Morris, let me see, what's his name on keyboard? Tom Washington was on keyboard sometimes, and I'm forgetting his name. He was a great keyboard player, though. And who was really great is a guy named Leonard Caston. He was the son of Baby Jew Caston, who played with Willie Dixon. And he was a great songwriter and keyboard player, and his father played keyboard, too. And he's in California now. I don't know if Upchurch has seen much of him, but a great musician. All them chess musicians.
Cash, I wanted to ask you about a guy that has fascinated me for a long time, and I know you did a lot of work with him. Please talk a little bit about the Big Bear, Monk Higgins.
Monk Higgins. Well, I don't know how much good I can say. I knew Monk. In fact, he's the one kind of brought me into the business. I mean, I remember I was living right next door to Betty Everett and didn't know it. But a group of guys and my sister and Clyde and Daisy used to come over to the house because they wanted to sing. So I would take that old acoustic guitar I had, and we would rehearse over there. And I was starting writing songs then. I'd written a lot of songs before while I was in the Army, but I was hearing this new stuff, and I was starting to kind of gravitate toward it. Well, anyway, we didn't know. I didn't know who Betty Everett was, but she lived right next door. So we'd be over there rehearsing. So we decide, Huck, James Carr, he's dead now, but he decides, I know where this recording studio is. We ought to go down there and show him what we got here.
Uh-huh.
So I agreed to that. We all hopped on the bus and went down to Wonderful Records, which are located on 1800 somewhere South Michigan. Anyway, we went down there, and that's the first time I ever met Monk Higgins. That was in the early 60s. And so we go up there, and we're all kind of paranoid, I guess you could say. But funny, Huck was the lead singer. Huck gets up there. I give him the key. I give him the guitar G, whole acoustic guitar. Don't know where it is now, but I give him the G. And Huck comes apart. He's shaking all over the place. He couldn't find his voice. And Clyde and Daisy and my sister and me were looking at him. And Monk Higgins saying, listen, I don't need this noise. You people can't sing. I want you out of here. So I pack up the guitar. And I said, wait a minute. Huck's, I don't know what's wrong with you. Here's how the song goes.
Right.
So I sang the song for her. And he says, well, wait a minute. Because we were all getting ready to go catch the bus and go back home.
Right.
He goes in this office where George Leno, I guess that was the owner. He was the owner of Wonderful Records. He goes in his office, and him and George come out. And he tells me, sing the song again. So I sang the song again. And then they both tell me to come in the office with them. So I go in the office, and George Leno's sitting there looking at me. He says, you got a great voice. I didn't think it was all that great. Well, of course, I didn't know either way. And he says, we're thinking about giving you a record deal. And I'm thinking, me a record deal? Because I always sung background. I didn't ever sing any lead. And I said, I don't know why. I said, Huck is the singer out there. The rest of them. They said, nah, we don't like his voice. I said, you didn't hear it. He got so crazy, he couldn't sing. They said, no, we want you back down here tomorrow. Can you come down there tomorrow? I said, okay. Says, you got any more songs? I said, yep. So they said, okay, we want to see you 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. So I said, what about the rest of it? They said, we're not interested. We don't want them. And I had to go back out and face Huck and Clyde and Daisy and my sister. So I went back out and Huck, what are you talking about? Don't you know they have tape recorders in the walls here? They record everything. I said, oh, God. I said, listen, let's go home. And say, I'll tell you. No, Huck, I want to hear what they said now. So I had to tell Huck, we're sitting out in front of Wonderful Records, and I tell Huck, they say they don't want you, man. They say they don't want nobody. They want me back down here tomorrow. And he said, you want to let them do that to us? I said, I'm not letting them do anything. I'm just telling you what they said. My sister and Clyde and Daisy said, well, that's the way it is. That's the way it goes sometimes.
Right.
But Huck went completely apart. They're stealing. They're going to steal everything. I tell you, man, they got tape recorders in the walls. And I didn't believe none of that. But I told them, listen, let's all go home and see if there's anything else we can do. But we get back to the house where my mother is, and Huck just comes all apart.
Oh, boy.
And there's some crooked business, everything. And Clyde and Daisy and my sister told her, so listen, man, you try some things you can do and some things you can't. Let's let it go. We tried. That was it. And Huck's the one was standing on his head for us to go down to these recording companies, right?
Sure.
And he freaks out when we get there. So none of the rest of them wanted to sing with Huck after that. sister and Daisy and Clyde told me, listen, you meet those people tomorrow and see if something happens for you beautiful. I said, but I'm not the singer here. And I was kind of confused. I didn't want it. I love playing guitar. I love singing background parts. Didn't want to sing no lead or nothing, but so I kept the appointment and went up there.
Yeah.
And I showed him a couple of other songs I had. One I just written. So, when you're doodling, man, you're sitting around, got the guitar. I've played in jails before where you go with church groups and you see a lot of the prisoners in jail. Make you feel kind of bad. But I wrote a song called Mr. Turnkey. It wasn't a song, but it was one of the only ones I had that I figured they could hear because it had the changes and stuff. So I had another song which was greater than that, I thought. What was that? I can't remember the name of it. But I went down there, and he says, I want to hear everything. So I played, quite an array of songs, about 10 different songs. And out of all of them, they wanted to do that song, Mr. Turnkey, which I thought was the worst. It wasn't even quite together. And guess what? The next day I had to go down there, and Jimmy Tillman, a drummer, you ever heard of a group called the Dutones?
No.
Well, anyway, that was one of the early groups. They had it wonderful. They did a song called Shake a Tail Feather. Alvin Cash was also at Wonderful. He came in a little bit later. But anyway, I got to go to the studio next day. I meet Jimmy Tillman, and I met one of my most favorite musicians in the world, a guy named James Green, the bass player. And guess who else was on the session? Mighty Joe Young.
Wow.
Never heard of him?
Sure.
All right. Mighty Joe was on the guitar.
Wow.
Who was on bass? James Green, great bass player. And Jimmy Tillman. And so, and Monk was playing keyboard. And everybody was agreed at the time. I didn't know it, but Monk couldn't play no keyboard. But I didn't know. They all looked at Monk there. They'd have frowns on their faces.
Oh, my gosh.
And he couldn't play tenor that well either.
Right.
But I didn't know at that time. I'm just the young guy up there. So we recorded that song. And I was very impressed with James Green and Jimmy Tillman and Mighty Joe Young. I saw that movie about Mighty Joe Young, the gorilla, right?
Sure.
You never heard of that movie?
No, I don't know that movie.
Oh, that was Mighty Joe Young, a big movie, man. When I was young, I think they played it first time. It was in Chicago, I saw it. But anyway, scared the daylights out of all of us, And so that's where I remembered Mighty Joe Young from, the name. And so when this guy comes in there, he was a good guitar player too, man. And one of the nicest human beings you'd ever want to meet. In fact, I saw him. He came down here a little while before he died and hooked up with me. And I got with him and his wife and was showing him different places around here. And me and James Green played with Matty Joe too, and Coco Taylor.
Cash, I wanted to, one thing that, going back for a minute, did it ever, when Huck had a panic attack and couldn't sing and you sang, you never once said to him, hey man, you had your chance and you choked, and I went up there and I did it. He seemed like he was unraveling because he knew that it's amazing how fortuitous it was, because if he had actually stepped up and sung real well, you might never have had a chance to do anything.
That's true. Huck had a great voice, but he got a panic attack and just got scared and stuff. And I didn't even want to do it.
Right.
I enjoyed singing background. I enjoyed playing guitar. I didn't want to sing, but that panic attack, that's what brought it all around like that. Because I was not afraid.
You're definitely not afraid. And then, so that session, so within 3 days, you cut a record. What year was that with Mighty Joe Young?
That was, I think 1963 or 64. Can't remember.
I wasn't. Yeah. Go ahead.
I bet you wasn't born yet, were you?
I wasn't born until 1978.
Oh God.
Yeah. That's why I wanted to.
Yeah, about 19. It could have been 62 or 63 or 64, one of those. I think it was 62 or 63. It might have been 61. I can't remember.
Because this is Cash. It's so important for history to be able to tell these stories, because your generation of musicians, not just the versatility, not just the energy, but it really what it amounted to was security and love. And I think that I'm just going out on a limb here, but I want to say that your folks, the church and the Army had a lot to do with sort of instilling a confidence in you and your generation, not to waver and not to be afraid, and to be hopeful. And I see now in the white community now, more fear, more paranoia, more insecurity than ever before. And I'm trying to get back to the time and talk to you about why it was, through much more vicious racial times, why it seemed that there was more love then than there is now.
That's a good question there. I don't always understand it, but I do know that my father, we were in, what's the name of this place? We were there one time, and we had picked 36 bales of cotton, which should have been a good payday. Well, we were sharecroppers at that point, and that should have been a great payday, but my father went down to get the settlement, and a lot of the other black families went down to get their settlements. But what do they call them? What they used to call those guys that own the plantations?
Yeah, the plantation owners,
Yeah, well, I forgot this guy's name, but went down there. My father was thinking, he says, hey, guys, a lot of things we haven't had and stuff like that, we're going to get them now. He says, and you kids have worked real hard and stuff. And he says, guess what? God is going to bless us now. Mm-hmm. So he goes that evening to get the settlement, right? That settlement is like, they total it up they sold the cotton and stuff. And aside from, they used to get something, I forget what it is, but those houses were some of the worst houses in the world. The outdoor bathrooms, right?
Oh, man.
So let me tell you something, but my mother and father were good gardeners. They raised all kind of vegetables. He even raised hogs. We had chickens, to help the food supply.
Sure.
And let me tell you, man, my mother was a great gardener, and my father was too. And we did fishing and stuff. You never had a crawdad tail, did you?
I never have, no.
I just stuck that one in, but guess what? They taste very good.
I bet, yeah.
And we used to catch them with willow, the limbs off of a willow tree. You stick it down in the water, and the crawdads will grab a hold of it, and you ring them up.
Mm-hmm.
But, very tasty. You get them down in New Orleans, real good. They know how to cook them. Anyway, and I got a friend here from New Orleans.
Hold on, Cash. Hold on one sec. Talking about the crawdads, the tails.
Oh, yeah, the crawdad tail.
Yeah.
Anyway, now you take a willow switch. My mother used to whoop us with that willow switch, by the way. She'd plait them together when we did something crazy. But we used to catch those crawdads and stuff, and that was a lot of fun. And my mother was a great cook. Country, but a great cook nonetheless. And we got a chance to eat lots of vegetables, which I used to hate. But I love them now.
Of course.
And so they raised us pretty healthy on that meager fare.
But the reality was that you went down to the owner, and he didn't give you the fair cut for all the bales that you picked that day. Is that right?
That's right. My father went down there. In fact, the guy, when my father and some of the other guys who were sharecroppers too went down, he made a killing that week because I remember he 36 bales of cotton. My father should have been getting $4,000 or $5,000 at that point, and he figured it out. He knew. Guess what the guy gives him?
$10.
$1,100.
Yeah, I mean that's unbelievable.
And some of the other families didn't get that. They knew my father had a short fuse and was willing to die, and I didn't want to see that. Nobody wanted to see that happen. So a couple of other guys, my father talked to the guy. He told him, almost called his name. He told him, man, this is not right. He said, we worked hard like dogs, and now you're going to come and steal from us. Oh, they had a way. And funny, he had the sheriff there with him, right? That was really strange. I tell you, well, the world has changed a lot, but I saw it in some of the bad days, and it was worse before I came on the scene. Down there in the South, and sharecropping, very brutal and unfair business. But we survived. My father took the $1,100. I remember he bought a truck, and we took a trip to see my uncle in St. Louis. And so we were there for a while, and then my father decides he did very well when he was in Chicago. He was working for a milk company. I almost called the name of the milk company, but he was doing quite well. But when you're a country boy, I guess you just, well, I feel comfortable in the country. You know, I remember when I was a kid here. That's why I'm down here now.
Yeah.
I like cities and stuff, but when you're country, you're country. And I am country. But anyway, we came through all of that, and after he decided to leave St. Louis and come back to, where was it, Missouri, where I was born. And we started the same thing, working sharecropping. And that's where I met Melvin Williams, the quartet. The Dixie Harmonizers was the name of the quartet. One of the guys is still alive, the preacher in the group, Junior Thomas was his name. He's living somewhere up near Montana somewhere.
Wow.
What's the state next to Montana?
Maybe Wyoming or
Oregon.
Oh, it's a great state.
Yes, I tell you something, man. I've been some places in this world never thought I'd ever see. All over in Europe, different places, even China, Japan, Korea. I've played everywhere, and that's been a blessing. I got a chance to meet a lot of people. In fact, I still get telephone calls from a lot of them. But anyway, after that, we're sharecropping in Missouri now, and that's where I meet the Dixie Harmonizers. And they wanted me and my brother Leon to sing with their quartet. And we did, and it was a lot of fun. Rehearsals every Tuesday night. You work in the cotton field all day. Me and my brother, we used to be so excited because we wanted to get there to Dave's house and rehearse, to sing that gospel. So we did that, and shortly after that, my father passed away. That was a hurting time for us.
Yeah, but actually
my brother Leon went away to the Army, and a little while later, I did too. And after the Army, my mother, they had moved back to Chicago. So when I came out of the Army, I got hurt, and they shipped me back to Chicago. I was in Walter Reed Army Hospital for 6 months, where amazingly I met a country player there. Can't remember his name, but he was a good player. He shot himself in the stomach to get out of it.
Exactly, right.
Oh, yeah, he was really funny, but he was a good player and singer. He taught me my first country song, some song called Way Down in Columbus, Georgia.
Wow.
Friends all turned their backs on me. Go and leave me if you wish to. Leave, little darling, I don't mind. But he taught me that, the country way. And in the Army, in the service clubs, they had guitars. If you could play, you could always check out a guitar. But anyway, I knew him for about 4 months, and then finally he went home. And I met a lot of those old World War II guys in there. Some of them were pretty cool. You know, cutting body parts off of people that had been hurt, legs getting blown off and stuff. And they had what they call Purple Hearts.
Sure.
To give you that decoration in the army. But I met a lot of those old veterans. That was kind of quite exciting for me. That was really funny. And talking with them, you learn a lot. But they come through that segregation and all that stuff at a much harder time than I did. I was a young guy up there. But they would sit down and talk to me about different things when they had the all-black Army units and all of that. Well, I saw all of that. And that was quite exciting to be a young guy and to listen to them talk about that war and stuff. Man, they win those wars in Germany. No fun.
No, I mean, and I just want to say, for your father. I mean, he left you, but he also passed his spirit on to you. And even though maybe you didn't get compensated that day for all the sharecropping you did, you certainly, for your career, your dad gave you a lot of spirit and life in order for you to propel you to become a pretty great player.
Yes, he did. My first guitar, guess what?
Yeah.
He used to, you ever heard of a mulberry tree?
Yes, of course.
Well, my father used to take a limb off of that, and he used to make what they call shots. You could take those old mulberries and you could shoot them out, but you could also make flutes out of them.
Wow.
And my first guitar was a piece of baling wire up against the side of the house with a can in it to move it up and down, right? So that was our first guitar, one string. And I've seen it on some of these old movies and stuff from that day, though, where my father used to put that baling wire up there, put the can in it. You can make it doom, make noises with it, right?
Sure.
But me and my brother saw in the back of a Captain Marvel comic book a guitar. They said if you sell a box of flower seeds for this company, you would get a guitar. And me and my brother, we wanted that guitar so bad, right?
Yeah.
It looked real nice, an acoustic guitar, right? So we went out there and we started selling those flower seeds, 10 cents a pack. And my mother kept count of the money and stuff like that, and they sent it in for us, and then they sent the guitar. And me and my brother Leon, we were so excited. We're going to get a guitar. First time. Guess what? One of them plastic guitars, right?
Sure.
With plastic strings on it.
Oh.
And it fell apart.
Oh.
It fell apart. Boy, that hurt our feelings so bad.
You know, I want to get back to some of the early '60s when you first got these big hits. One of them was "When You Wake Up." It got to be number 19 on the U.S. Billboard, and I was listening to it. I've listened to it a couple times, and it's really interesting because the instrumentation it was much more about the vocals, and because the beats are very simple. It wasn't into that groovy electric, Charles Stepney,
right.
So where was it at in the early 60s, and how did it get to, and tell me how soul music influenced, gospel music in order to get it to be that kind of electric funk kind of stuff.
Well, that song first came to me in Missouri when I was a young guy, never thinking I was going to record it, but I wrote it because it was just, I don't know, something in your mind. I think I was in the middle of a cotton field somewhere, and I jumped this barbed wire fence and hurt my leg. So I was at the house. I couldn't go to the fields or nothing. And hey, I was listening to WDIA radio, listening to some of the gospel. But I don't know, I wrote the song, First You Say You Love Me. So, you're a young guy, all the girls around, they had some pretty girls in Missouri.
Oh, yeah.
And you're young, you don't know anything. But there was a girl, in fact, Melvin Williams, her name was Rosa Lee Williams, and man, all the boys were in love with her. So I was just looking, and I wrote the lyrics down on a grocery bag, When You Wake Up. And I started off, first you say you love me, so now you say you want to go, because I'd seen her break a few guys' hearts in school, right? And I would never say anything to her. I'd just look at her in class, right? But anyway, she was a heartbreaker, bless her heart. I met her later on in Chicago, and she's a very nice person. But, first heartbreak for you.
I'm sure.
But I wrote that song, and I don't know, put it together, and when Monk first heard it, he went nuts. That guy that used to be, that helped form the Impressions, what was his name? He was a promo guy.
I don't know.
Eddie Thomas, that was his name. He was working up there, and this was at a label called St. Lawrence, because George Lena fired Monk from up there. So I went to show Monk this song, When You Wake Up. And when he heard it, there it is. He called Sidney, Ham, and David, who I just talked to the other day. David Henderson, the bass player, he's living in L.A., and his wife is one of the girls I recorded with. They had a group back in the 60s called the Duets and the Dutones. They were all recording on Wonderful. And I played on some of the stuff. They had a big hit record called Shake a Tail Feather, the Dutones did. I don't think the Duets ever had a big hit record, but they were recording with them. And David is married to Mary, which was the other part of the Duets. And David Henderson, they came from Washington, D.C. They had been the backup band for Billy Stewart. Remember him?
I know the name. This is a little before my wheelhouse. So I mean, you're
yes, it is. I'm sorry.
No,
anyway,
it's great.
He had a few records out of Chess that were doing well for him.
Sure.
Billy Stewart did a great version of, oh God, I can't remember, but they were his backup musicians. And David is still alive. He's doing very well there in California. And one other name. He used to be Coco Taylor's son-in-law, Alvino Bennett. He's playing for Dave Mason now.
Wow.
But good drummer. In fact, I just left him a few days ago. I was up there in California with him. He's got a recording studio and stuff. And I was helping him get some songs together. Well, anyway, Lord, I'm sorry, my friend.
No,
Man,
no. I know. No, listen.
Help me.
I will.
Help me get straight.
I know. Listen. So, because you're getting so, I love it. You're getting so into it. But no. So Monk Higgins was like, "Oh, this is it. This is it."
Yep. Running down the hall of the place. It was a place called St. Lawrence Records, way on the deep north side.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, and that's the first time I met Eddie Thomas. And a lady named Audria, who used to sing with Dorothy Norwood, was the secretary there. And also, that other great guitar player, he was playing with Ray Charles, Freddie Robinson.
Oh, my God. That guy's an animal. He's awesome.
Guess what? He was there.
Oh, boy.
And so, Monk Higgins running down the hall, him and Eddie Thomas are running down the hall, and I'm sitting there wondering what's going on. But guess what? That very same day I showed them the song, they called Sidney, Dave, and, what's the boy's name? Pinchback. Let me see. David Henderson. Ham is the only thing we ever called the drummer, and they called Sidney Pinchback, who was also a great guitar player.
Right.
They'd all played with Billy Stewart. Well, next thing I know, they're up there, and we're in the studio. And I know you've heard of this guy, Malcolm Chisholm.
Sure.
One of the greatest engineers in the world. He was working at St. Lawrence. They had their own studio, which he had built. And that's the first time I ever met him. Next thing I know, I'm in the studio, and we're recording the song. That's when I also met a girl named Mamie P. Galore. You ever heard of her?
No.
Did some song that did real good called It Ain't Necessary. Well, anyway, meeting a lot of people who I've never seen before in my life. But I really enjoyed those, they call them the three albino boys, they used to call them, that rhythm section.
The three albino.
Next thing I know, that day, we record this song. So I remember, and after that, I left. I left the studio, voices down there, and so I go on about my everyday life. I think I was working somewhere. Oh, I was working on a truck with this bass singer. Lord, I used to help him do his deliveries and stuff. He works for a janitorial company.
Sure.
Now I'm trying to remember his name. 71 is rough, babe. But anyway, I'm going on about my business, and I remember me and my younger brother, I was working with him, and I was making enough money to get me a car. So me and my kid brother, who's passed away now, we went to Gary, Indiana, to get some fishing poles, because my mother wanted to go fishing, and we wanted to go fishing with her. So I go there, and while we're going down in the car, my brother got the radio on what is the name of the station? WVON, yeah. We're listening to the radio. I think it was Herb Kent. And he comes on the radio and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, we got a new voice here. My name is Morris Dollison," right?
Sure.
So guess what? We're driving on, and this strange song comes on, and I'm listening. I said, "Lord, da-da-da-da-da-da. And my brother said, Morris, sounds like some you wrote.
Right.
And I'm sitting there listening. Finally hear this strange voice come on. I said, oh my God. They put the record out. That was me.
Unbelievable.
And when the record finished, Herb Kent said, ladies and gentlemen, that's a local yokel with a new vocal on WVON, the Herb Kent Show. And the record sold a lot. It was a hit record. But guess what? Man, I didn't know anything about none of the stuff. You know, I know. But guess what? Otis Clay, I remember. I go down to, he was playing at a club not too far from where I was living. I go down there to see him, and man, I walk in the door, and he starts laughing his butt off. You know, they all laughing, everybody. Johnny Williams, who else was there? I can't remember all. And the Sidney Pinchback, David Henderson, and Ham, they were playing drums with Otis at that point.
Wow.
They all fell out laughing. They told Otis, right, and they fell out laughing. And he said, ladies and gentlemen, we got a new artist in the building called Cash McCall.
Oh, my God.
That knocked the daylights out of me. Cash McCall.
Cash McCall. I mean, I hope you don't mind me calling you Cash, because I love Maurice Dawson, but, I mean, where... Like,
that's all right. I'm used to answering the heart up now, but that floored me.
Can I ask you a question?
And those
Hold on.
Cracked up and laughed at me so much that hurt my feelings. I went home.
When the DJ, when you first heard the song with your younger brother in the car, and he said that's a local yokel from down here in Chicago, did he say Cash McCall? Did he even give a name, or he didn't even tell you who?
Yeah, he did, but I wasn't paying no attention.
Well, you were blown away. You were blown away.
And everything.
Oh my God!
I didn't pay no attention after that, and so I really didn't know. I wasn't paying no attention. You know, I was still over the shock of hearing myself on the radio. I can't believe.
Truly, that must have been an out of body experience. I don't know what
it was.
Holy cow!
It was. I'll tell you something, because I told my mother, you know, because my mother did not agree with R&B music and stuff like that. You know, we come from gospel.
Sure.
And she was very serious about it. But who was it? Charles Stepney and Sonny Long Run Thompson told me, because I was quite worried about it. I said, man, I'm writing this stuff, but I don't know if I want to be involved in doing it. They said, listen, son, it's music. It's not the devil. It's music. It's not going to change you. It's not going to change you. The person you are today, you can still be that same person. You don't let the music affect you that way. And certainly don't let it turn you ignorant. Because some people believe they make a record, all of a sudden, they're the greatest things in the world. They say, you don't impress us being that. You're a cotton field dude, you're going to be a cotton field dude.
Right.
And I was country. So being around guys like that help keep your level and keep your mind on straight street.
I'll tell you, that's one of the really, I mean, you've said a lot of amazing stuff. That was maybe the most powerful thing, where you had these mentors, these guys coming in saying, you know, Maurice, your lyrics might be more suggestive. It might be more about love than God, or, you know, it might be more about women, or whatever it is. But it's not gonna corrupt who you are at the core. This is just music. You know, that's all it is.
You know, God knows, man, you got a great way of talking there. But that's it. They told me, keep your head level, son. You know, you go through it. It's a fantasizing thing. You go through it. You can think of yourself as being a star when you get on stage. But guess what? Leave it on the stage. Go back home. And that's why I love being around my brothers and mother and being with the you know, just regular people. It helps keep you cool. And I always stayed friends with those quartets, the gospel guys.
Sure.
That helped keep you balanced. Hut, Reverend Dowdy, and Joseph Moore. One guy, the guitar player from the Songbirds, he lives in South Carolina now. I talk to him every week.
Oh boy, the gospel songbirds. Wow, unbelievable. So I mean, can you just like talk a little bit about what your mother was reacting to when she heard your music? What were the things specifically that you were doing that was making her uncomfortable musically?
Well, guys coming by the house looking for songs, first of all.
Right.
You know, right. That little harmonica player used to be in the neighborhood. And I'd be out there, on the steps playing guitar, trying to come up with a song and stuff. And a lot of times he would come by, but either way, he would come and knock on the door and come upstairs. And my mother was always suspicious of people like that, right? She said, "What? That's that old blues guy. I heard him in the neighborhood." She'd tell me, "Look, son, don't hang around." She wanted me to stay in the gospel, and I understood that. I met Reverend Clay Evans, I met Jesse Jackson, met all of them. The Clay Evans Church was not too far from where we lived, and I used to go in there sometimes and just listen to him and listen to the choir. That was fun for me. But I also knew had been in gospel, and guess what? A lot of times we'd be on the road, and guess what? You made no money. I learned to eat a lot of bologna sandwiches, because bologna at that time, it was 70 cents a pound?
Yeah.
The guys would buy a pound of bologna, and a loaf of bread was 35 cents, and guess what? We'd all pig out on bologna. I remember those days.
Oh, man.
And when you had no money, you didn't eat. So guess what? I got used to that, and guess what? I was comfortable with it because we were out there singing gospel, and we knew God makes a way. But I always believe that. He will make a way for you.
Joined here again by Cash McCall, legendary rhythm and blues singer and guitarist. He's composed many, many great soul hits in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and up through contemporary music. And Cash, I wanted to ask you, I mean, we talk about getting older, and do you wish you were still young?
To be truthful, no. I'm glad God blessed me to see all the things that I saw. Let me experience a lot of things, especially going over to Europe, China, Korea, Japan, different places, all kind of islands and different stuff, and seeing different people and meeting them. Now, He's blessed me to still be alive and be able to see the things and experience the things I've experienced, and that's been a blessing. And no, I don't want to be young. I feel good being as old as I am.
You don't look, I mean, so many people look back on their lives and they say, I didn't do this, I should have done that. They kind of wasted their time. It sounds to me like you didn't really ever take a day off.
No, I didn't have too many days off. When I was young, it was on the road with the quartets. Man, I tell you. But when you're young, you're out there on the road. You know, man, it was exciting. It was exciting to see a lot of those gospel singers, man. That was something. To see Dorothy Norwood, to see the Soul Stirrers, the Dixie Hummingbirds. And I was playing with the Pilgrim Jubilee to see the Swan Silvertone. Some great quartets back in the old days, man. Whew. Did I forget any of them? Oh, the Gospel Ambassadors. They were a group from Philadelphia. Man, they could do that old time harmony and stuff. And then finally, and there was a group in Chicago by the name of the YMV Singers. It's different, the alphabetical group. But they didn't want a guitar. A lot of times when I first started singing gospel, they did not have no guitar. They had a pitch pipe. And the guy would get up there, they'd get ready to sing, he'd blow on the pitch pipe. The rest of the guys would come in, hit the harmony, and guess what? They'd start singing. And guess what, man? If you could have just heard some of that music. Oh! God, man, was that music wonderful. No keyboard, no guitar, no nothing, just the voices up there singing. That was the greatest experience of my life. And guess what? Not to leave that out, my mother and father, were they great. My mother had that high voice. You know, sometimes we'd come out of that field dealing with that cotton or something. And guess what? We'd sit around there. We had these number 2 and 3 size tubs, right? My mother would have to take water from the pump and put it on top of the stove, boil it, and put it in the tub. We had to go and take a bath.
Yeah.
You remember from the old days?
Oh, this is. No, I want you to keep telling me about this. This is great.
Okay, that's taking you way back. But
Yeah.
you come out of that field, hey, she didn't want you going to bed with a lot of dirt on you, so we had to take those baths, man. No indoor plumbing or anything, but it was kind of fun. Hated to get in those tubs, and my mother liked that water real hot, right? Well, that's one part of it, but guess what? The greatest part of it was sometimes they'd let us stay up an hour after, and they'd light that kerosene lamp, and her and my father would sing. Oh, was it beautiful, man. And we, the four of us, my sister and my two other brothers, the kid, my older brother, well, the older one that was with us, he's now passed away, and my brother John, he was older, and my older sister Mary, they've all passed away now, but it was the four of us, Sarah, Dee, Leon, and me. And we sit around that old tin, they had what they called a tin stove. Burned, man-made red lights all over the place, never did send out much heat, though. But we'd be around there, and, man, the only time to get through sometimes after coming out of those fields would be to listen to Mom and Dad sing. And they didn't have a pitch pipe or anything. So Dad would find the key in his head, and they would sing that song in that great getting up morning, hallelujah, hallelujah. Great getting up morning, hallelujah. And my father was a bass singer. Oh, boy, he had a line he would sing, man, I'm so old, I'm forgetting it, but hallelujah, hallelujah. And he would say, boom, ba-da-dum, boom, 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 boom. And he had a great voice. And my mother earned a high voice. Tell you what, can't remember a lot of the words, but they were really great.
Oh, I believe it, man. There's no doubt. I wanted to ask you. We were talking last time about the transition from, you going from gospel music to more secular soul music, and your mother was, she just, after a while, she said, "Okay, I'll let my boy go down the road and figure it out." But I want to talk about like the instrumentation, like the sound of your guitar, how you were playing originally in the '60s, and how it kind of morphed from more blues to soul, R&B. I mean, can you take me through that progression in your playing?
Yes, I can. I remember when after me and my brother Leon, after Father showing us, putting this string of baling wire up on the door, we were quite young still at the time. But then we moved to Missouri. I got a chance to see the house I was born in, right off of Highway 61. And it was between a town called New Madrid, Missouri, and Lilburn, Missouri. Oh, boy. Trying to remember that. Yep, that's right. Oh, boy, that's crazy time. But anyway, a lot of open fields, cotton fields for days. You could see them around there. But anyway, there was a guy named Melvin Williams. There was a quartet there. And we just moved there from Chicago. I remember I was about 6 or 7 years old or something. Anyway, we grew up, we started going up around there, chopping cotton and picking cotton. And my mother and father, they were great raising a garden. They sometimes have a small garden right by the house, and out in the middle of the field, they have what they call a truck patch. And so that's where they raised all the stuff, watermelons, corn, potatoes. They raised everything. My father was very good at that. So we always had to go to church. That is when we had a car. And sometimes my father would get a car in some kind of way. But anyway, then we would go to church. Sometimes we've been to churches, man. That little church, when you hear the Church in the Wildwood, you remember that song? That's an old song from many years ago.
Yeah, no, you're testing me now, dude. You're testing me.
the little, well, bless your heart, the little brown church in the Wildwood. Some country and western singers used to sing that, but you didn't have a lot of blues on the radio. In Chicago, when you were young, they had one station you could hear all the music. John Lee Hooker. You could hear even farther back, Lightning Hopkins.
Wow.
Howlin' Wolf. I heard all those when I was young, but John Lee Hooker's the first one I got a chance to hear. Boogie Children was the name of the song. That was great, man. I loved it. And don't forget, we had that guitar player that was living in the building that my father was buying. Man, he'd sit out there with those spats on, and he had an electric guitar. Used to fascinate the daylights out of Leon and me. We would hang around him, man, and he would just play. Boy, that was beautiful.
Oh.
Anyway, Melvin Williams, back to him. He was in a quartet called the Dixie Harmonizers. And, man, we got a chance to go and see them sing one time. Man, we were amazed, man. We're sitting there looking, and Melvin Williams, he was playing a Stella. That was the name of that acoustic guitar, but he had a pickup on it. And, man, we heard these guys sing, man, and me and my brother Leon, we were fascinated. Man, and, boy, we looked at my father and told him, hey, Dad, we want to do that. And my dad, he was always a jock. He said, boy, get out of here. You can't sing. Leon insisted, yeah, Dad, we could sing it. And what was really amazing, somehow, after we left that program, watching those guys sing, and when the Dixie Harmonizers sing, I almost called their names. Oh, God, the name of that ladies group. You talking about singing, man. Those ladies were great. I'm trying to remember the name of them.
It's all right, Cash. It's all right.
Lord have mercy, man. The brain sometimes
it's all right.
Work too fast, but that group of ladies.
But that
they sing.
When did you get that electric sound that you used to look at that guy on the stoop playing the electric guitar? And when did you?
Oh yes. No, we didn't get it until way later. I'll tell you when we got the first electric guitar I ever played was the one that was Melvin Williams. He had in the Dixie Harmonizers.
Right.
And he had his guitar tuned in the key of E. That was the strange tuning. Well, he called it cross Spanish. His tuning was cross Spanish. Wow. We found out later it's just the guitar is tuned in the key of E, and you just tune it. What is it? E, B. Oh boy, let me remember. E, B, E again.
Right.
A D sharp, B, and an E. And now, after we found out later that a guitar chord always has, if you make a major chord, it always has the root, the third, and the five to make the chord. Anyway, we learned that much later, though. We watched Melvin play that guitar, man, and me and Leon, we were so fascinated. We still remembered the baling wire and the can in it, our first guitar, and that one we got out of the gardening, out of the book from selling garden seeds, which flew apart.
Yeah, the acoustic, anyway, the plastic one.
This guy, I'm sorry.
The plastic one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're looking at him play this guitar. I remember the name on the guitar was a Stella. Anyway, me and Leon, we were so fascinated, man, because after they finished singing, man, they come out of the church. Me and Leon, we were over at him, right? Asking him about that guitar and stuff. And you know what? It's a funny thing. They finished singing stuff. He took us back inside of the church, and, man, he sat down, and he played for us. Man, that fascinated me and Leon. Man, we were so fascinated, man, we loved it. And he played, he showed us, you take the second finger on your left hand, and that's how he would make his bar chord. And, musicians been around a while, they can tell you about the bar chords. And the guitar being tuned in the key of E. Man, so many names keep running through my head for that tuning, but cross Spanish, I remember, is what Melvin called it. But we found out later that it's tuned to an E. The whole guitar, you could hit it open, don't put your fingers on the neck, and it would make an E chord. So that fascinated me and Leon. Anyway, he showed us some things. He said, boy, it ain't hard. It was hard to us. And he played a little. I said, all right. And he also told us while we were watching, this is the way they play when they're going to play slide guitar, which we didn't know what that was.
Right.
But he had him a slide, and he showed us, man, and that was beautiful. We said it sounded like a Hawaiian guitar. But he showed us all this stuff, and then he turned around and tuned the guitar in a funny way, and he said, now this is the way the country boys do it. He tuned it, did something, twisted the strings, and hey, made a C chord, a F chord, and a G chord. And me and Leon, boy, was we fascinated. Boy, we were so fascinated. But he found out Leon and I could sing a little bit. You know, the harmony and stuff. So really funny, he went to my father and told him, we did a little singing while we was in the church, and we could sing a lot of the old gospel, you know, after hearing my mother and father do all the singing and stuff. And we could even sing harmony. I don't know. And I was about maybe 8 then, I think. Leon was maybe 10.
Wow.
But that was fascinating for us. Man, so, and Melvin finally, he goes out there and he talks to my dad. He tells him, them old boys, they can sing a little bit. My father, yeah, they've been trying to learn, you know. And so, it was funny. Melvin wanted my brother Leon to go and sing with their quartet, the Dixie Harmonizers. Boy, I was fascinated, but I wanted to sing with them too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I made a fuss about it. But anyway, they started picking my brother Leon up, taking him to quartet practice, which was on a Tuesday night. Even after you work in the field or whatever, even the wintertime, they always rehearsed on Tuesday night at different other guys in the quartet's house. And that's when I met Reverend David Fuller. David Fuller was a great singer with a great voice. Junior Thomas, he had a great voice. Oh boy. A guy named Zebedee and Brown was the bass singer. What a voice. Brown had a voice. Ooh, it was unbelievable. I got it. The Loving Sisters.
The Loving Sisters.
Name of that girl group. I think it was. Not the ones from Arkansas. The ones from New Madrid. The Loving Sisters. If I'm wrong, I'll tell you about that a little later. But anyway.
Is it New Madrid? Is that how you pronounce it? I love that. New Madrid.
That's the way they pronounce it.
I love that. I'm going to call it that from now on. New Madrid. That's great.
Yeah. It's actually spelled the same as Madrid, Spain.
Of course.
New Madrid.
Of course.
Believe it or not, all the blacks said New Madrid. Even the white would say New Madrid.
Dude, it's so much cooler to say New Madrid than Madrid, I'll tell you that.
There you go. Well, that lets them know you're from that part of the woods. When you say New Madrid, if you said New Madrid, all the kids would laugh at you. But anyway, we had a great professor down there. Now, the first school we were going to, let me remember. No, that was in Mississippi. What was it? O'Banion High School. Guess who the principal was?
No.
His name was Howard. His son played baseball with the Yankees. Elston Howard.
Sure, my dad grew up with Elston Howard.
Well, guess what? That was our professor's son.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, yeah. And he used to get up in assembly sometime. Ladies and gentlemen, you can do anything you want. We're in cotton fields, but guess what? Improve your mind.
Yes.
And he would love to fall to the subject. And by the way, my son, Elston, he plays with the Yankees, you know. And guess what? That was exciting to some of us. Because we had a baseball team at the school, you know, didn't have all the nice fields and stuff. But hey, he would always, almost every assembly, and his wife was a lady they called her Miss Turner. She was the vice principal. He was the principal, she was the vice principal. But really funny, when Professor Howard found me and my brother Leon did a little singing. Oh, he started getting up into assembly and saying, I hear there's some singers around here, but I haven't heard any music. Oh, no, me and Leon, we'd sit there looking at each other, what's he talking about? But anyway, we started singing around there. What's that boy's name? I'm trying to remember. Lord, I can't remember his name.
But yeah, once you started singing, the principal he loved it.
Oh yes, man, make that harmony, man. Even in the cotton fields, me and Leon would sing. No, Mort, that's not the right. You got to do something else. But we learned to sing harmony very well. Even my sister was a good singer. She's still alive. My older sister's dead, and my older brother, they're dead, and my younger brother and my brother, who I used to, practice music with, he's passed away. And my sister and me, we're the only ones still here. But some of my nieces, good musicians, man. One boy, good drummer. The other one was playing horn. Some of her grandchildren.
What do you, Cash? I want to ask you something about why. Like your father, the families were so much more stable, even though the times were so much harder. I mean, your mom's making, but nowadays the black families are all broken apart, so the boys don't have anybody to look up to, and that's one of the problems in the black community now, I think, is the mere fact that these boys don't have fathers. You had your father and your mother together. You saw they loved each other. Most kids, but now kids in the black community don't have that, and that concerns me greatly. It's a big problem, especially when it comes to making really beautiful music. Otherwise, you get music where it comes across as angry.
There it is. That's the unfortunate part. What you brought up a great point. They don't have the families like they had back in the old days. Guess what? It used to be. If you were a kid and you were doing something crazy that didn't make no sense, guess what? All those ladies down there, just because you weren't at home, you figure maybe you could get away with it?
Not happening.
Guess what?
No.
It wasn't happening.
Not happening.
Guess what? They would grab one of those switches and whip your butt.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the other ladies in the family down there, they look at you and say, acting bad out here. Your mother already told me to tie your butt up, and they would whip you.
Yeah.
You couldn't go to somebody's house and show your butt. Oh, no. All of them would get a piece of you. They catch you acting bad, and guess what? You wouldn't just get that one whooping. When she would tell your mother about it, you got another whipping.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, I was raised in that environment. I know very well what that's like.
I've heard that from other guys, too, who grew up in the South or even in segregated neighborhoods. They would cut up and think they could get away with it because their folks weren't around, but then their neighbors would whip up on them because they cared. Everybody was looking out. You know
about it, man, because guess what? That's exactly the way it was. And I tell you something, it's really cool. They had a little trouble down there. Some guy, they used to have a bunch of in the South juke joints.
Sure.
Where guys would go, they would go down on Saturday night and on a Sunday. We weren't allowed. But it was called Daddy Foster's. Daddy Foster. This was in Missouri, I think. Yeah, Daddy Foster's juke joint. It was on the old Poor Farm Road. That's the gravel road this club was on. And guess what? We used to see it. It was an old house. It had holes in it and all kind of stuff. But on Saturday, it sometimes was open through the week. But on Friday and Saturday, the place was jumping. I'll tell you one of the first blues songs I ever heard that I was in love with. No more dogging, fooling around with you. Roscoe Gordon or somebody. No more dogging, fooling around with you. Told me that you love me. Bob told me a lie. Spent all my money on whiskey, beer, and wine. No more dogging, fooling. I love that song.
Wow, that's a great tune.
Well, guess what? Me and Leon, it wasn't too far from the house where we lived.
Sure.
We were not allowed to go there, right? But me and Leon used to sneak down there so we could get an idea and listen to that music. Because they had a jukebox in there, one of them real old ones. But guess what? They had holes in the walls and stuff, right? And me and Leon used to peek through those holes and watch those people dancing. You remember those shoes? I forget what they call those shoes. They were black and white. I forget what they call them. They're old shoes.
Cash, this is all new to me. I don't remember anything. I love this, dude. Keep going.
I forget you're a young guy.
Yeah.
They call them saddle shoes.
Uh-huh.
The lady call them saddle shoes. What they'd be white shoe with a black thing coming across where the laces were. And man, they would polish their shoes, and that's when the ladies were wearing all these, what do they call them? Undergarments. I forget what they call that thing, but it made the skirts real big. I forget that. What do they call them, Gene?
Kremlin.
Who?
Kremlin.
My wife just said they call them Kremlin.
Kremlins, yeah. Yeah.
They would stretch the skirts all out, some kind of way.
Yeah.
And they'd have them shoes on, those saddle shoes on, and these skirts would be way out with all them, whatever petticoats, Kremlin she just called them. Anyway, and they'd be a dancing. Me and Leon be peeking through the hole in the wall, and guess, boy, there it is, hole in the wall. You remember that saying, right?
Absolutely.
I'm going down to the hole in the wall. With me and Leon, we used to peek through those holes in the wall and watch those people dancing. Man, that was a lot of fun for us.
Hey, Cat.
My father telling us at the same time, you boys don't be listening to all that mess.
Yeah, but he knew he couldn't control you forever. You know, he was going to have to let you off the leash at some point. You know. Well,
he kept us on the leash at that point.
You know, Cash, I wanted
that song.
I want to ask you about. You did an album with Upchurch with Jack McDuff called Gin.
Oh yeah.
Gin and Orange, and
Lord have mercy.
You know, and I wanted, you know, when you got into those settings, when you and Upchurch, you guys were both, you know, young stallions. You know, talk about that scene and the music and just playing with a guy like McDuff, who was he your age or was he older than you? Take me through that whole.
He was older than us.
Oh boy, talk. I mean, what was? Please put me in that. Please put me in that studio the best you can.
Well, he didn't know us. He had heard of Upchurch, I think. You know, I never did say a word to the man. All we did was end up on that section. I'm trying to figure out who put us on that section. I think it was Richard Evans. That was the name I was trying to remember. He was an arranger and a great bass player.
Oh, yeah.
First time I saw a guy play some real super upright bass, it was a guy named Richard Evans. He was producing for Chess, too. But that Jack McDuff thing, he must have put me and Upchurch on it. But anyway, I remember that day almost. Anyway, I was too nervous to say anything to Jack McDuff, but Upchurch wasn't afraid of anybody, man. He go and talk to him because even at that time, I think he was 16 years old when he had a hit record called You Can't Sit Down. He was a great guitar player then, man, too. But anyway, we were doing that session. Richard Evans just put me on it, right? Because I was kind of nervous. Jack McDuff was considered a jazz guy.
Of course.
But Richard Evans didn't care. He liked me in Upchurch, and he would put us in some different situations. There's a big band that Richard Evans put me on. I can't remember. What's the name? Had the great big band from the old days.
Like Stan Kenton kind of band, or is it?
Yeah, I like that kind of band.
Right. It was a jazz.
I can't remember the guy's name, but I played on one of those albums in there.
So that
might have been Stan Kenton. I can't remember his name.
You know, but you know what I'm trying to get at is this idea of when you and Upchurch really, when you first met Upchurch and you guys really kind of clicked, and I mean you were, and the kinds of, not just the sessions you were on, but just the kind of feeling that you guys were able to generate through the music and spreading that love and spreading that air of beauty.
Well, that had to do a lot with the coming in because we were not great readers at that point, even though we were trying to learn. You know, they could put up a sheet of music and confuse the daylights out of you as a guitar player.
Right.
But I got a book called, I'm trying to remember it, Mel Bay had a music book out to show you how to make chords and stuff. And, oh boy, what's that other book? This guy had the big book showing you how to arrange for horns and strings. Nick Maniloff or something. I got that book. I think Charles Stepney got that book for me. But I started learning how to write for horns and strings and stuff. We studied that book. But Upchurch was an inspiration to me. And another guy named Gerald Sims. And wait a minute, that's not all. But most of my influence came from Joseph Moore, who lives in Atlanta now. I talked to him yesterday.
Oh, boy.
Joseph Moore, great guitar player. He's playing keyboard for a church. But I was playing in the gospel songbirds at that point, and Joe was the guitar player, and I was playing bass for him, and he showed me so much. So when I go to the studio, I had it on guitar. There was Upchurch right there who played bass and guitar.
I know, unbelievable.
Church was a funny dude, man.
Yeah, I want to tell me about him. Tell me about him.
The Church was a crazy, funny dude, but an inspiration. He used to come to that session sometimes. If they didn't start the session on time, Church would pack up his guitar and say, I'm out of here.
Oh.
You know?
Whoa.
He was young as all get out, brash. But guess what? We was all sitting back. Man, we were saying, boy, that Church got some nerve and could play amazingly. But what used to get me, guess what? These old guys were doing a little Milton session. I think it was that session. I'd written a song for him called More and More, which was a hit. The Blood, Sweat, and Tears recorded it, and a whole bunch of people.
Right.
But anyway, Church brings them snakes up in it. He comes in the session with a snake around his neck.
Oh, my God.
Guess what happened?
They all ran out of there.
It wasn't funny at the time, but, man, you should have seen these old dudes. Floyd Morris, big as he was, just off that keyboard, he ran out. Murray Watson ran out. Who else? I'm trying to remember all. Mark Jennings, he kind of just sit at his drum. Donnie Hathaway split. Who else? Murray Watson. I'm trying to remember all them horn players. God, some cat named Orr on the trumpet. Anyway, you should have seen them cats running out of the studio, including Gene Barge. Man, at Church up there, sitting up there with that snake around his neck. Man, it scared me too. I left the room too. And he's sitting there looking at us. Man, what the hell is wrong with all you crazy people? Man, the snake ain't gonna bite. And guess what?
Yeah.
He put him in the cage with him. He put him in the cage. And so we got a chance to start the session again. Even little Milton was sitting up there looking like crazy, right? They had he was on the mic behind the screen. But all them people, you should have seen the fear, man. Church was a gangster. he was a gangster for real. And guess what?
Yeah.
If you had enough nerve, he would invite everybody after the session over to his house because he fed those snakes every 2 or 3 days. I forget which. But he wanted everybody to see him feed the snakes.
What was he feeding them?
Rats.
Oh, my God. He's out of his mind.
These snakes were small, Mr. Weinberg. Let me tell you something. A lot of them went right over to his house to watch him feed the snake. And they told me about it. I wouldn't go. They told me about it. They say, man, you put this big white rat into the cage, right? That snake, he wasn't a big snake. All of a sudden, man, that rat come in that cage, they told me about it. That snake would raise up, man, and his mouth would stretch so big, boom, and he would get the rat. I didn't want to see it.
That
Dirt would be cracking up, right? He was a different cat, man, a real cool cat. But anyway, you asked me about Jack McDuff's session.
Sure.
But went in there. Richard Evans was a great musician, great arranger too, and great arranger. And he played that upright bass, and he played the electric bass too. But he could do all of it. And man, that was just a lot of fun because now listen to him when you do this. If he wrote some stuff that we couldn't read, but he would come and tell us, now here, you do it this way. And guess what? We could do it, and he would give almost call that guy the name of that big band. But I was on there too. That was a great album that year. That guy had.
I'm really trying to. I wish we could get. Was it Woody Herman? Was it Stan Kenton?
That sounds right. Woody Herman. It was either Stan Kenton or Woody Herman. One of the two.
Yeah.
One of the two. Because they'd come in there with some of the horn players and stuff. Big bands too. I even saw that drummer once. He was a pretty famous guy. I saw him once.
Buddy Rich.
What was his name? His famous drummer.
Buddy Rich.
That was him. I think that was him. I'm not sure, but I believe that was him.
You know, this whole thing, like you made this album, Cash. I think this album is worth about $100. It's impossible to find. It's called Omega Man in 19.
Oh
Lord! Now, what you were in the prime of your life at that point. What was going on? And it was on the Teresa or what label was it? What label did it come out on?
That label in New Orleans. What was it? Let's see. I'm trying to remember. Oh boy, I almost had it.
Me too.
I know what you're talking about. That record, Omega Man. Let me see.
Don't worry about the label. We'll worry about the label will come to me. But what, like, where did that come from in 1973? I have never heard it before, but it seems to me to be a conglomeration of soul and funk and blues.
Right on.
And
I mean,
yeah,
there were some songs my brother had been working with me on, and we just need to do it. That was Alvino Bennett. That's a guy I was just up in California with, Alvino. He was the drummer on that.
Really?
And guess who else had played on that? James Green, that great bass player. James Green, who else? Let me get my glasses and see. I'll call some of these.
Yeah, I need the personnel on that album. Do you have a copy of that album?
Huh?
Do you have a copy of that album?
Not anymore. I got the jacket. My wife found it somewhere.
You found the jacket. That's great.
But that's arranged by Cashmore. The guy from Ike and Tina Turner.
Oh.
He married one of the Ikettes. Eddie Silvers. He did the arranging on this thing at Telmar Studios. That's Chess. That's Chess Records. That was the name of the studio. I would think we did it in Studio B or A. Gary Starr was the engineer. And Dave Houston, Oscar Smith is on there, Cliff Burris, Photograph, Joe Wyatt. These are people in New Orleans. Ralph Pierce, Don Logan, Joe Wyatt. Some of those people from Jewel Records. That was the name of it.
Yes. Thank you.
Stan Lewis owned it. And some of the musicians on here: Alvino Bennett, John Schubert, Steve Ostorich, Tennyson Stevens on keyboard on here. Remember him?
Well, I know that Upchurch did a lot of work. Where is Tennyson these days?
He's in Hawaii. The last time I talked to him.
Tennyson Stevens.
He's over there living a good life.
He played keyboards on that album.
Yes, he did.
Oh boy.
Greg Phelps, electronic organ people. I'm trying to remember Greg Phelps. Chuck Colbert from, I forget that group he came from, doing some percussion on there. Fred Walker, who they called Durf, was a great percussionist in Chicago. He's on there. Freddie Fox on harmonica, and Eddie Silvers, deceased, horn arrangement. In fact, Eddie Silvers died when he was doing the horns on this album.
Oh, my, really?
He passed away. Yes. Oh boy.
Like you, when you were making that album, it was so far removed from When You Wake Up. You know, with the idea that you had hand drums, you had electronic organ, you had electronic guitar. You know, talk about that evolution of in your career from the time when you were in bands where it was really about vocals, and then it turned into, and then it went to vocals and sort of the electric boogie woogie.
Well, let me see. I was playing with John Schubert, Alvino, and Steve Ostorich, and John Schubert and Alvino. I was playing then, and guess what? We got a chance to be around a lot of them rock bands in Chicago, and I used to look at it, and I played with some of them. You know, it seemed like we used to play in Chicago on Rush Street. They used to not have no black bands down there at all, but we started playing down on Rush Street. And from the first gigs I had, it was from the girls in the bunny costumes dancing, right?
Yeah, right.
They go pick up a guy came in. Believe it or not, me and James Green, Saxy Russell, and Tim were playing at a place. Oh, what's the name of that place? Where the girls had the bunny costumes on. The Scotch Miss. Right there. What street was it on? They were on one of those streets in Chicago. It was on Rush Street, a place called the Scotch Miss. And guess what? We played there. Guess who came through there? Chubby Checker.
Mm.
They would hire artists to come through and sing. Chubby Checkers came down. Who else? Boy. Oh, what's that name of that group they did from the old movies and stuff? The Triniers? This is going way back. Triniers.
But the point was that it wasn't black performers though. I mean, you guys were the only black performers there.
Yeah, well, sometimes, except the Triniers and Chubby Checker, and most of the time their performers were white. And sometimes they bring, white acts in, and we'd always play the dance set, and then we'd go upstairs, they finish their set, and then they'd come back up, we'd go back down and play another set for the girls to dance, and they would take customers up and invite them to dance, right? And I guess a lot of them was exciting to be able to dance with a bunny, right?
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
that sounds great.
And guess what? Sid was that guy's name that owned the place. He paid us real good.
Oh, yeah.
We were making $100 and some bucks a week a piece down there.
Yeah, because all the guys wanted to dance. They wanted.
I'm sorry.
They wanted to dance. All the guys wanted to come in and dance with the bunnies. They were paying good money to come in.
Exactly, man. A drink was very expensive in that place, and it was a small place, wasn't big at all. And he was bringing Chubby Checker in there, and at that point, Chubby Checker was making long cash, and the Triniers, he brought the whole group of them down there, and man, they did the old time music stuff, right? Sort of back from the days. I could call a paper doll. What was their name? That group that sang, the old guys.
I don't know, Cash. I don't know.
Hey, man, getting old and can't remember.
No, you're doing fine.
That old group came down. I'm lost in. Keep me on track, Mr. Feinberg.
Let's just go back. The point is that you were talking. What I really like, what you were talking about, was that you had a chance to play or at least listen to a lot of the rock groups that were coming through. So obviously, it had an influence on Omega Man. It had an influence on those albums in the early 70s.
Oh yes, man. Rush Street in Chicago was quite a popular place, right? Got a chance to see a lot of the white groups down there. But a lot of it came from Rotary Connection. You ever heard of them?
Oh, absolutely. Well, Minnie Ripperton was in there, right? Charles Stepp.
Right on top.
Yeah.
Well, toward the last of it, I was the bass player in that group.
Oh, wow.
That's going way back, and I wrote a song called Paper Castle for them to record.
Oh, I know that tune. I know that tune. Bless
your heart.
I know, that's a great tune.
Yeah, well, I was getting used to that sound, and so I had a lot of songs I'd written from the time I was in the Army, so I'd go back. You don't know where all the influence came from, but I would go back, and from hearing all this great other music, Charles Stepney was the arranger on a lot of that stuff. Man, he was great. Oh, he was great.
What made him great?
Great arranger. He's the one, him and Sonny Long Gone Thompson, who used to get on me and Church's case about reading. Right? So we started learning to read from that point with Sonny Long Gone Thompson and Charles Stephanie, and Gene Barge helped a lot. So, anyway, man, hearing the influences that he did from Rotary Connection, that was great. Oh, man, because we got a chance. Man, if I had a wild idea in my head, right, and I'm on a Rotary section, I'd look at Charles, say, Charles, I can try something. Well, go ahead and do it then, because, he was kind of brusque in his dealing with people, but he always would hire me. He said, go on and do your crazy thing. And I love doing crazy things right on the section, and he loved it, man. Charles and me got to be great friends, man. He was a beautiful guy. And he was one of the first ones after Joe Moore who started showing me how to write that stuff down. You know, the range for horns and stuff and strings.
Sure.
He showed me a lot. My greatest teacher was Joseph Moore, who lives right down there in Atlanta, but Charles and Sonny Long Gone Thompson, great keyboard player, both of them great keyboard players. He showed me a lot about it. He used to take me up to teach me how to read. He'd take me up to the 6th floor. At that time, Chess had a lunchroom on the 6th floor, if I got it right. I think 6th or 7th floor, 5th floor. And Sonny would take me up there, and we would eat that mess they had up there, and he would show me. He would write stuff down. Here, partner, this way, you got to learn your division. He'd write a row of 16 notes and tell me how to interpret them. Sonny was great. He's passed away a long time ago, but he was great. And so me and Church started getting it from being around guys like them. And Church can even arrange some now. And do some reading, too, as old as we are. But
no, you know,
that was about it.
You know, is that why, because you became more proficient with arranging, especially with horns, and some of the older blues cats were wanting to transform their sound? Is that how you got involved with Willie Dixon?
Somewhat. Well, Willie was around there. Willie, something happened. I was writing and stuff like that, and, you know, just doing songs, and people recording my songs. So one day, that's when the bad stuff had been happening way before I even showed up on it. But Willie comes in there one day and tells me, hey, boy, I hear you're writing a lot of songs. Are you with BMI? I said, what the devil is that? I don't know nothing about no BMI. He says, well, look, boy, you need to protect yourself. I said, protect myself? What are you talking about? He said, listen, boy, you meet me down here tomorrow. And I said, I'll be here. So Willie came down and he had these papers, because I'd been working there for, 5 or 6 months at that point. And Willie brings these papers from BMI. And I'm looking at him. He said, look, boy, sign these. And I signed them and gave them back to him. Willie left. And so the next week I saw him, he said, now you'll be somewhat protected. I said, what are you talking about? He said, listen, boy, you don't know nothing right now. He said, but let me tell you something. You're in a crazy business. I said, I'm listening to Willie. I am. He said, yep, you're in a really crazy business. He said, you got to learn how to protect yourself. I'm not thinking about all the stuff that I know that went on now. But Willie was great, man. He came in, first time I met him, you know, he'd come in helping me. So he's the one that signed me up to BMI.
Wow.
Because I didn't know nothing about it, and none of them tests ever said a word about it. Nobody told me nothing. And anyway, when I walked through the doors of the test, I came in there with a hit record. When you wake up.
Of course.
They never told me one word. They never paid me for when you wake up. Ain't that strange? But I just didn't know. Willie's the one told me, boy, you'll never get none of your money if we don't get these papers signed. But I always trusted Willie from the first day I met him. He was always cool. And he would take the time and he would tell you something to help you. And from that point, he started calling me in on the stuff he was doing, man. Like, what's that boy that died in Canada? Oh, Jesus. Anyway, Coco Taylor. I was on a lot of her sessions. Who else? I can't remember that boy. Oh, and I did, man, you know what was great for me? Sitting there on a session with Buddy Guy over there, Lafayette Leaks on piano, Clifton on drums, James Clifton, I forget his name, on drums, playing with those guys that Willie had there. Man, that was great and exciting for me.
Oh, wow.
And Willie had a way when, I almost called his name again, Coco and him. Willie, sometimes, a lot of the blues drummers didn't have what we call that regular 4/4 time. They just sung the way they felt, right? And Willie understood that. A lot of times they didn't know when to come in on a verse of a song. Willie would sit up there, he'd put his hand on their shoulder and tell them when to come in. That boy died in Canada, Gene. You know, we met him up there. He was talking about he'd been over there with, what's that guy, the Greek ship magnate? The lady that the guy Jackie Kennedy married. What was his name after John F. Kennedy? The Greek guy. Do you know him?
No.
Jackie Kennedy, her second marriage.
Yeah, right.
The guy that owned all the ships.
It's okay.
The guy from Greece.
So
anyway, that was Jackie Kennedy. That was her second marriage. She married the Greek guy. Anyway, I almost called his name. This harmonica player. Well, he became a big star over in Canada. He used to tell me and the wife that, hey, he had just come from being over there on that Jacqueline Onassis. That's him. Onassis.
Onassis.
That's him. He would tell her that he was over there playing on a ship owned by Jackie and Onassis. Anyway, man, that boy, he used to tell us some of the greatest stories. And guess what? We all suspected this boy's lying, but he could tell some real whoppers. Oh, Lord. I wanted to call his name because he was one of Willie's prodigies. And this guy, Lucky Peterson, you heard of him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I saw him when he was a kid. Willie brought him up there. Willie also brought this guy up there from the Young Rascals. Remember that TV show?
Absolutely.
Well, what was the black kid on there with the hat? I saw him. Willie brought all of these people up there, man. He knew all of them. You know what Willie ended up owning? Muhammad Ali's first Cadillac. Willie still got it in a garage somewhere in Chicago.
Hey, Cash.
White still got it.
Did you ever cross paths with Bill Cosby or Richard Pryor?
I crossed not Richard Pryor so much, but we played. Morris Ellis had a big band in Chicago, and sometimes Gene Bard played in there, and sometimes they wanted me to go and play too. And so guess what? We had to play at the Playboy Club in Chicago once. And Bill Cosby, I didn't meet him, but we had to play the opening set. And then we were all sitting in the chairs, in the band chairs, right? And Bill Cosby comes on stage. I didn't even know he was going to be there. Anyway, he comes up, and he gets up on the stage, and he turns around and looks at all the band members. And he looks at us and tells us, listen, I don't need you guys behind me. I don't play like this. So we all had to get up and get out of the way. He didn't want the people sitting behind him. But that was about it. Never said a word to him, but I was real close to him. Never said a word to him, though.
You know, the other guy I wanted to ask you about, he's a guy that I'm going to interview in a couple weeks, is a great guitar player from I think he's from Tennessee, actually. He's Arthur Adams.
Arthur Adams. Lord have mercy. I know that name.
Yeah, well, he played with the Crusaders, you know, with Styx Hooper and Joe Sample and Wilton Felder and those guys.
Oh, he did?
He sure did, yeah, but he kind of, I wasn't sure if you guys ever, you know, he's sort of maybe part of that peer group that he's a little bit around your age, you know. The point is you had this, my final question for this session, Cash, is when you look at the peer group that you had, your generation, you know, what stands out to you the most as far as what made you guys so special and why you guys were so open-minded? Why do you think, what shaped you guys like that?
Lord have mercy. That's a good question. I would say being around some of the people I got a chance to be around, like Willie Dixon, major influence, Charles Stepney. These guys were kind of, how do you say, they were like, it's stretching it, but they were like gods. Because Willie was so cool and calm, always. Man, a session could be going crazy. Willie was always calm. He never got overexcited. Charles Stepney, on the other hand, could get very excited to the point, I mean, no, you give him some trouble in the studio, you could get knocked out. And Sonny Long Gone Thompson, another quiet guy. Really beautiful, quiet man, but they were serious about the music. Sonny would always look at me, young boy, he would tell me, you got to concentrate a little now. And when you were writing songs, he says, hey, the world is a song. Looking at the world, when you wake up every day, there's a song staring you right in the face. Give you inspiration like that. And Willie believed in God. Most people think he didn't. But I remember going over to his house, he'd get an idea. He'd call me on the phone and say, boy, get over here. I'd go over there, and guess what? Man, he'd have these ideas and stuff, but before we even get to the songwriting, he would go and get the Bible and open it, and he would always go to the Lord's Prayer. And the way he explained it and stuff, man, he would go over the Bible, and I'd sit there listening, eager, because Willie was very knowledgeable of the Bible. A lot of people figure he didn't believe in God or anything, but that was a lie. He did. And he would show me, young boy, he'd look at me, he said, guess what? There's that great spirit out there. Because I was part Indian, at least I was told, he would always tell me about the great spirit. And I always listened to Willie. And the Lord's Prayer, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. He would go over all those parts. And say, give us this day. He said, son, God has given you another day. Here we are. We're getting ready to do this song. It was our daily bread. You ate today, didn't you? And he would just go through a whole rigmarole of stuff. But before we got to the songwriting and stuff, he would always go get that Bible and read out of it. And we'd start the day that way. Sonny, on the other hand, he played for a lot of the quartets around Chicago. You know, we never talked about the Bible or God that much, but Sonny, he would tell you, son, you want to accomplish something, you have to stay at it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to stay at it. You have to listen to people who've been there before you. You can get some ideas of how to conduct yourself. And they always talked about the drugs and stuff. Son, stay away from those people that do that. Stay away from that stuff. You won't be able to handle it. All the good advice. And Charles Stepney, whew, man, he was dynamite. He could be a little much to be around, but everybody loved him because he did not play. You come in there, and he knew what my reading capability, knew church's reading capabilities, but you know what? People always thought he was just, couldn't handle much. He was always mean. He expected you to perform when you got to the session, but guess what? If he knew you didn't have all those reading mechanics and stuff like that, Charles Stepney would help you. He would help you. Sometimes, man, he put that sheet of music in front of my face. Woo! Boy, I'd be sitting over there, oh, God. Oh, God. And he'd come in and say, look, boy, don't be overexcited. He said, here, when you get this part, you go, pop, 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 ba-da, ba-da. And, he would just do little things to help you. And finally, I started putting my faith in him. I started not being afraid of the Charles, because Charles would always come. Sometimes he'd make me come to, if something was really complicated, he said, look, studio time's in at 10 o'clock. You get here at 9:45. And guess what? I'd be there at 9:45, and he'd show me all the little dangerous parts, what I might run into on a music chart. Lord, but anyway, am I answering some of your questions?
Cash, I got to tell you, my man, I got to go be a father, but I love you, my man. And this was incredible. We did over an hour today. So it was. I mean, there are nuggets of gold in every one of these interviews, and I mean, this was an honor, and I can't thank you enough. And I think my goal is to ultimately transcribe this thing and get it into a soul magazine so that people can read about Cash McCall. I think it's vitally important. That's my next mission here.
Well, you know what, my friend? God bless you. Much luck to you. And guess what? It's been a pleasure man, thinking about them old days and getting my whole mind wound up and stuff. Guess what? God bless you. I hope it was a help.
Thank you, Cash. I'll talk to you soon, my man.
Take care, my friend.
All right now.